Hello, bonjour, welcome everyone. How's it going? Mr. MKL here. We are hanging out. Happy Niche Fighter Monday. We're chilling in the digital basement. Yo, Y20, what's going on? Welcome, my friend. Funny you should say that. We're going to be spending some time today going through the Corey gaming video, the one about what is a video game genre. Yes, because we just had a discussion in August about what makes a fighting game, and we built out the basement interpretation of fighting games. So seeing this pop up from Corey is really interesting. I'm glad someone has taken a look at this. I haven't watched the video myself yet, but I figured, you know what, let's throw it on, and let's go through some of the finer points of what Corey's talking about. I also saw that Jourdain was bringing back the Fantasy Strike, which, big shout outs to Jourdain. Like, seriously. It's always nice to see. I have definitely kind of disconnected from the Fantasy Strike community, which is a shame. I still have, I've got some love for the FS folks, don't get me wrong. But it's really nice to see someone pick it up again. Yeah, I know. So this is the thing. This Corey gaming video, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do, like, I don't do react videos, right? Like, I take a look at trailers and stuff like that, but, we have discussions about what's going on in the community, but I don't really do the react video thing. But a couple people in the Discord had suggested this, where they're like, look, this is like right up your alley, it'd be interesting to see your thoughts on it. So, I was like, damn, nice, we're gonna do some FGC video analysis, or analysis video analysis. But it's an hour long, man, so we'll see how much we're gonna get through. I want to get through some of the finer points. There are some, all I've done is I've looked at the chapters, and I'm like, okay, there are some chapters that are very, very relevant to our interests here in the basement. So I'm gonna take a look at what their concept is, and then, see how they follow it through. But I think that's a good place to go. And then we have ourselves a little bit of, I made a find at the pawn shop, and we have ourselves a Capcom Power Stick Fighter, and I'm gonna run this Super Nintendo arcade stick through its paces a little later on. And there's like 10 minutes of sucking up to... all right, yeah. I mean... we're gonna see. Like I said, I don't know what's going on in it yet, so we're gonna find out. But before we find out, we gotta kick off the day, man. Happy Niche Fighter Monday, everyone.
Here you go! Niche Fighter Monday!
Welcome everybody. Let us do some of the fighting game analysis. I mean, this is interesting. Like I said, we spent some time in August going over basically the fighting game genre explained, right? We went through some definitions, basically. We had a big discussion here in the stream and said, all right, what are some of the canonical games? What are the games that are absolutely genre defining? And then we looked at those, and then we teased out some of the properties that make them genre defining, that, like, after those group of games, just interest of attributes to this basement interpretation that we created, and say, does it classify as a fighting game as one of our canonical fighting games will be classified? But that means that our canon of fighting games contained a broad genre of like a broad variety of games. It wasn't just a single game, right? Street Fighter, of course, was there, but as were games like Mortal Kombat and Tekken and Smash Brothers, right? So those games all inform the wider genre, So it'll be interesting to see how Kore takes a look at this concept. Spoiler alert, the very first thing they say is that it's just the player versus player. In my experience, that's a featured discussion usually takes for granted. Because we are part of the FGC, it's just a given, but to the uninitiated, it's not so obvious. Well, aren't I? All right, let's kick it off. We got a lot to go through.
When Riot revealed the gameplay trailer for its upcoming fighting game 2XKO, a user on Reddit described the game as a Tekken-like, which caused a collective facepalming of fighting game fans. It was like someone saw these spring rolls and called them burritos.
Burritos? Well, they're spring rolls.
Tekken and 2XKO are obviously different to fighting game players,
obviously,
but it's not surprising how these games could seem similar to the layperson.
Oh yeah.
Look at how many have
Okay, let's just a quick note. There is some AI art sprinkled throughout this video that Kore Gaming decided to, experiment with and incorporate. They have since apologized for it and said going forward there won't be any more AI art in Kore video stuff, Kore Gaming stuff. That's good. I'm just kind of like, what the hell? They went and they paid an artist to do an amazing thumbnail for this video. Like, Kore Gaming has is very good with their design work and like their memification and their Photoshop work in all their videos in the past. So it seems kind of a shame. Like there are people out there who are able to do this, and like whatever. I'm just gonna say, like, I get it. You wanna expedite things. You want to keep costs down. I don't know what the financials are like for Kore and their video stuff, but methinks they could have either, instead of putting the time into figuring out the AI stuff, just made equally amazing stuff themselves, or have contracted, right? So this is kind of like
screen depleting
and look,
towards the center and win the match.
Yeah.
Fundamental characteristics.
So those fundamental sussed out based on like the unimpeachably figured out those list of attributes. Perspective. Right? This is like similar, are like exceptions to the rule.
This sounds like rock.
Mostly has and around 3
Right.
to 5 members.
Features.
But everyone knows as technical death metal. Trace its roots down.
Okay.
If you were to try
Chuck
Interesting.
Berry together, thus form games. If you go back far enough to
Street
the
Fighter
World
2, the-
Warrior
Look. Represented of a larger canon. There are the contextual of your. He seems to be going for a like genealogical approach, right? Which I think is kind of interesting. But I'm gonna. My gut tells me that if you are looking at as stemming from one individual of artists right, that represents, right, like, two, then opposed to having a broad section of things from which there are many like spiraling and interconnecting paths, right?
Inspired by
Neological
many
approach.
iconic fighting games before, types that laid the groundwork.
Karate Champ.
Karate, but its clunky double joystick. ER sadly single player only. One had, it still did. Games
Okay.
were popular.
Like those things. Selectable character. This is the, I think, the beneficial approach that we took. The benefit to the approach that we took, because, right, like, no one aspect will make you. Is far more like, look, you don't have game, right? I mean, like, they're obviously recognizing the. I think this is why, like, okay, these proto games shifting things. Type of one, something like a Street Fighter 2 would be. Games are like awesome game, and it created Street Fighter until all those with the clone genre that you can. We're going to end up with some really strict like diversions in origin, or like this kind
of 2, which would go on to combination of design and gameplay that became made today. So what exactly?
Excuse me?
high order and low order values for
Characteristics.
actors, right? And like, yeah, order, but once again, does not remove your fighting.
From here, we branch off.
Wow. We're just like, no. High order. I find that this is going to fundamentally dynamic, like
Non-traditional.
That's funny.
Game with a side perspective where both characters are always facing each other. This means that the character movement.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? Y20, like that's the thing. We were like something like the aspect of symmetry in the access to information is actually far more important, right? Like than anything else. The computer knows everything you know. You know, like everything the computer knows, right? Like whether it's 1v1 or like that, that's a far more important aspect of what makes the genre than anything else, right? Same with the like disparate archetypes. You can have right? Gamey than another. right? And many that kind of variety. The 1v1 like top of the mountain, right?
Is described as moving backwards and forwards as opposed to merely left and right. Because it's a 2D game, you cannot evade attacks by moving to the third dimension any more than the original Pac-Man could jump over ghosts.
Right? These are interesting conventions that stem from the format, right?
These games might have 3 place in the some will call moving into the third dimension.
You can
evade
by
by
jumping
going up really high.
Yeah.
So characters jumped higher than their own height, making the combat look like Cirque du Soleil. Making use of the 8-way joystick.
Once again, these are really interesting implications that are derived from the nature.
Hold forward. Hold down to crouch. Hold back to block. Down back to crouch.
Okay.
Because the creator of Street.
The next really like in block as the like prime.
A major part of the architecture.
Like right? Like it's does the method in which you block right? It is more common ways. But like thing that for the really I don't know. I find that one of the less impactful ways to do it because blocking and defense really comes into play in most games. So, I mean, like, the decisions when you have pull, the Oki, the idea turns our basement interpretation. So like you can wrap that up in defense and that is a more meaningful distinction, right? But I don't know, interesting. Yo, welcome Punk House friends. How's it going? Yo, we are chatting about the new Core A gaming video. All right, what are you saying there, Bab? As a retro niche fighter enjoyer, you have to look at UFO 50. There are some versus fighters in there. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna be getting there. Not hold back. There is no blocking. Things there, right? Welcome, Super. Oh, you messed stuff. Someone had to do it. And they don't do. There are some other.
Or feature.
All right, look. like the idea of 2D fighting as this
There is no left
journey pump.
Focused on refining Street Fighter.
It comes after. Wanted to take a broad enough, like, this is my idea of the right, like, thing, right, the secret mining, right, but that it is in fact not a good example, because you're right, there are other gameplay implications, and I just think that the divergence in blocking is less important than some of the other divergences, especially in terms of Mortal Kombat. So I just, right? I mean, like, I get where they're going, and it let them go down this, like, rabbit hole of what are the implications of blocking, the cross-ups, the high-lows, right? Like, those are interesting aspects of the genre that are worthy of their own discussion. I just wasn't expecting to go through there to get to the wider idea of defining genres.
Gameplay with all its bazillion updates, SNK was working on new fighting game franchises and innovating like crazy.
Very things that in those, like, so I think a canonical game and how another specific
and a two made a crossover game called
like companion piece,
the player who can
like, just because, yeah, like, I
do spot dodging, a kind of a pseudo dodge
and the spot dodges, those broader move. I just
tons of new movement and
current era of fighting games is that and also an anime increases the speed of regular. And classically,
at the core, backdashing had mechanics attack, but these act more, which is why same time.
interesting
But the
action to make that, yeah, you can use it like that. Once again,
this keeps players closer to
I
the
think
ground.
it
This keeps players closer to
I
the
think it
ground,
shows the
which is why it
interconnected
could be a
nature and,
subcategory
like,
for
the
grounded fighting games. A great example
simultaneous
of which lets you
grounded,
choose which
all
mechanics you
right.
want your character to have through its groove system.
It
All right.
merges and compresses basically a decade of fighting game history into one game and tries to create all these different.
How do we
In 1994,
Dark.
to back to block in the air. But there was a caveat.
Okay,
Air blocking
okay, and what
could
did I
only
say,
block
right?
jumping
Like, that
attacks,
this
not
was
attacks from the
their...
ground,
The
which
way that they're
includes uppercuts.
structuring this with having,
This
like, a
kind of partial
primary
air blocking
value
was found
lead
in
to the
Street Fighter
secondary
Alpha
value as
more
opposed to
recently.
be... Is that... must
Dialed in a series of
include...
buttons.
Must include... air blocking as the thing, right? And I'm like... Really? And, like, combat... air blocking as the thing, right? And I'm like... Really? And, like, combat... You could have your tree be Street Fighter 2 Mortal Kombat. Right? So, like, what makes combo than Darkstalker's chain combo? That Mortal Kombat, isn't that where the lineage should go? Yo, Lord Zai. I have not heard of a more recent Mortal Kombat hack, but I have heard of several of them. There's a lot of... I took the approach that I did with the basement interpretation as opposed to going a more genealogical approach, right? Because I feel like you end up cornered in these situations where you're like, man, like, no, like, this line should really be drawn, right? But once again, should really be drawn, right? But once again, I think if we're going to give the benefit of the doubt to the basement interpretation that, right, no one quality is disqualifying, right? No one quality is disqualifying, then I should probably give the same kind of grace to this one and not take it so linearly, even though it quite literally is that linear as they're presenting it. List of games you can't jump in is pretty small. Yeah, there's a few of them. List of games you can't jump in is pretty small. Yeah, there's a few of them. Right? The Super Dragon Punch Force. What, footsies? Can you even jump? Dragon Punch Force. What, footsies? Can you even jump in footsies? Right? There's a handful of them. And a lot of games that limit your jumping to attacks, like Tough Love Arena, which is...
departure from the stricter link-based combo timings of Street Fighter and KOF-like games. It was around this time when combos were being
so it's
recognized
fascinating
by
that
both the
they
players,
become the
instinct, even 30 hits during a incorporated a way to stop your
into burst to make though, right? And or like
Capcom game.
When Disney
would hop, slide, Lord Raptor would go one step during the first dash in the air.
oh, Girls Tournament Fighters Wingnut. Yo. This is also, someone also said that this was a very... So someone... It's true. You have one... would definitely be something that's applied to the anime or air dasher subgenre, right? These super long unbreakable combos, the right, the fairly lenient chain systems, and the like 19 different like universal system mechanics and individual character mechanics. That would be one of your like kind of higher order factors.
Songs were way too long. We used weird time signatures, and there were too many guitar solos. fact, this song is in 17/8, so try to tap your foot to it. But we just won a Grammy, so I'm glad we didn't listen.
But Capcom had been building up to their own anime-like game, or more precisely, a superhero comic-like game.
Wait, so they're
Right after
gonna break...
Darkstalkers, Capcom released X-Men Children of the Atom, which introduced their take on universal super jumps. Instead of making a long fixed jump
No,
arc
they're
like
not
in
gonna
King of
fucking
Fighters,
break this shit off
super
Guilty
jumps in
Gear, are
X-Men
they?
went really high. Like, so high they had to draw twice as much stage background vertically. They even made an indicator for the other player that was off the screen below.
Once
But it wasn't
again,
just the jump
very
height that was
interesting
unique. Super
implications
jumps also let you
from
drift your
that
character
like
left and
that
right in
stem
the
from
air
some
for
of
the
these
first
features.
time, kind of like you do in platformers. You could also do multiple attacks in one jump, and characters like Storm had an 8-way air dash, and Sentinel could literally fly. Combine this with the fact that you can block anything in the air,
It's a gradient from most grounded to most air.
Just be susceptible to high-low mix-ups anyways.
Okay.
In the air, there is no standing or crouching state, so there are no
Yeah.
high-low mix-ups. to worry
Versus
about.
series
Holding
is
up
based
back
off
to
of
jump
SF2's
an
code
air
base,
block
right?
Because you're too chicken
Gonna be
to
real,
deal with
Chief.
a high-low mix-up
Not feeling
on the
this video.
ground
Appreciate the
is called
attempt.
chicken blocking.
Not a fan of the
But this
execution,
made
or
air
at least how they
combat
came
so
out.
good
It came
that
to
they
this
also
conclusion.
improved ground mobility with
yeah,
dashes
right,
that you
like-
could cancel into other commands. You could even dash
I'm
and
not.
cancel into another dash,
I'm
which
not.
is
I'm not
known as
like that's it,
dashing,
right? Like I'm not
allowing
vibing with
players
this
to
exact
move
interpretation. I think to
extremely
be real, like
quickly on the ground.
I have thought
with
about the
movement,
the
blocking, and
genealogy
multiple
of these
attacks
games
all
and how they
available
work.
with
Like,
super
are there
jumping,
more
you
direct
ultimately got a lot
connections?
more
But I
battles
think
in the
like
air,
doing that,
like
it's
the
probably
superhero
more
comic
interesting
book.
to look at the
This
actual
kind of
people
fighting
who
game
worked
alone
on it,
would be enough
right?
to
Like,
distinguish itself from
you could
other
because you can make a
genres.
genealogical
This
connection
series
from
of
Street
games
Fighter,
was just
like
getting
and Capcom
started.
over to SNK, right? That I think is the approach that I would take if I was doing something like
In
this.
1996,
But yeah,
Capcom would release X-Men vs. Street
And then we're
Fighter,
bringing in
which
assists.
would become one of the first tag team fighting games, not to be confused with the existing team battle system in KOF, which only switches characters when one
what fighting
is
game would look like
eliminated.
in a 2D
The
space
tag
without
fighter lets you
100%
switch
floating, but with
between your
100%
selected
floating
characters
movement?
with a command,
Would be slow
and
as hell.
depending on the
Yeah.
game, you can even fight simultaneously with some limitations.
Or you end up with like a
But what really
Toho
changed
shooter
everything
fighting
was
game,
Marvel
which is
vs.
like
Capcom
manic.
2, which lets you call out your teammate to briefly assist you in the fight.
Okay,
also
so we're going
while their
through.
assist hits you low at the same time. If perfectly synced, it's
We're going through
theoretically
assists.
an
Okay, where
battle.
I want to see this.
And Dragon Ball Fighters, which are varying blends of
So grounded, anime air dasher, and versus. See, okay. Because like we ended up at a similar spot. Like when we were going through deciding our list of canonical games for the basement interpretation, we discussed a lot of these games, right, and how they fit together. And they kind of just got grouped into the hyper fighter that pulled from Children of the Atom and Darkstalkers, right? Where those were kind of the two games that had the most influence on that. So like once again, we weren't necessarily drawing direct lines from one to the next like they are here. We were kind of like making clouds, and like you exist underneath an umbrella, right? And where you are exactly is going to vary depending on your implementation and where you came from. But like, oh, this is fascinating, right? That they have gone the blocking approach on the other end of this chart, and now grounded anime air dasher and versus, like, yeah, DBFZ not an air dasher is an interesting outcome here. And primarily assists and stage size, right? So it's true, the Versus series did have a tendency to introduce, right? And like it definitely introduced the double size stages and the variable mobility aspect. And so like, yeah, stage size, variable mobility, and assists seem to be the primary features that determine Versus game as opposed to anime air dasher, right? And like this is a thing that, much like the basement interpretation, does run into problems, right? When you get into some specifics, they're gonna run into this now, where it's like, look, where do you put Grand Blue in this? Where does Grand Blue Versus live in this? Is it an anime air dasher? It's got the systems. Is it a grounded game? It's not CVS. You're gonna end up in a weird position with some of these games.
of versus an anime. If you look at the three subcategories of the 2D hold back to block games, you can notice there's a gradation that goes from you sure you want to jump all the way to why the hell are you not
they
jumping?
put it down here
The
between
archetypal
anime
2D
and grounded. That's so
evolved to
funny.
go more upwards. Makes sense because you certainly can't go into the background. But what if you could? Rewind back to 1993 and you have Virtua Fighter.
All right.
The first 3D
Yep.
fighting game with actual polygons
Hey,
and a 3D
100%.
camera. At
VF
first
was one
glance,
of
it
our
looks like a
canonical
2D
games.
fighting
That's
game
legit.
just with 3D graphics. But this is
Yo, the graphs are neat. Like I said, this is an amazing thought experiment. It is so fascinating to me in particular because my thoughts wouldn't have gone here, right? But this is why you watch other people's stuff. Like this is why multiple perspectives are important.
This. I found this on the internet.
Different is good. With the release of their first ever fighting game, Sega has broken new ever popular art. Walk speeds were more realistic, attacks had way more frames of animation, and high jumping became much less effective, to the point where 3D fighting games eventually phased them out. This basically eliminated the left-right mix-up game, and like Mortal Kombat, 3D fighting games focused on the high-low mix-up.
Oh, like Mortal Kombat. So should Virtua Fighter stem from Mortal Kombat genealogically then?
Except that highs are now always duckable, and jumping attacks are now called mids.
Sorry, I'm being a little bit of a brat. I'm being a little bit of a brat.
Most attacks that beat crouch blocking could now be done from the ground. Moves like gut punches, knees, and hop kicks became typical indicators
Yes,
of mid
KO.
attacks.
Virtua Fighter introducing the alternate win condition, that is one of the reasons we included it as our canonical game, right? As a canonical game, because its alternate win conditions are a fundamental part of the genre of fighting games, right? And that extends out to things like Smash Brothers, and platform fighters. That extends out to all of the martial arts combat games that use point systems, right? You start having a much broader and more holistic view of the genre when you consider those things being the influencers. And you're welcome. Like this is great, and like legitimately, I mean, guys, like I talk for like fucking 9 hours a week or something like that on stream. Like I am bound to say some stupid stuff too, and I hope people that are willing to be like, Mike, did you think that one through? Like maybe there was a better way to look at this, right? So that's what, like, I'm hopeful for a bit of that if it ever comes to it. Virtua Fighter is an MK clone. I want to see that argument. I could make it.
You cannot react to most mid attacks like you can with Cirque du Soleil jumping attacks. In later 3D fighting games, these mids could launch
again,
and lead
very,
to
very
double combos.
fascinating
So
implications.
risky, it became overall safer to stand block, which is the opposite of 2D hold back to block games. But the high-low mix-ups.
And look at how this
harder to block.
influences, right? Once again, look at how this, when blocking is the juncture point, that becomes the definition of what sets things apart, right? And like once it is a 100, yes, like the implication of how 3D fighters work and how you have to handle blocking, that is there, that exists. I'm glad that we get to go down this little rabbit hole that he's bringing us down to explore some of these concepts. But like, it's funny that I don't think they're necessarily proving the point in the best way or in the way that he wants them to. So, but it has all been internally consistent, right? I think like that's it. It is just like, in fairness for me, like I disagree with some of the fundamental premises that he's working from. So like, as we go down, of course, I'm not really going to be jiving with it all, right? Both games have Sub-Zero, and both VF and SF have Kage. There you go. They're all connected. Dude, this is it. We're building the web.
Because Virtua Fighter allowed you to press certain sequences of buttons which would activate a flurry of attacks that can be a mix of high, low, and yes, mid
Mortal
attacks.
Kombat.
These are called attack strings.
Virtua
and
Fighter.
Recognizing these patterns can help you defend against
Dial-up
them.
combos.
But with so many strings and variations, you're bound to get hit by something.
That's
This is the
so
high-low mix-up
funny.
game of the archetypal 3D fighter, and in a way, there are a lot of parallels. To
Yeah, if
modern
only
combat,
another
which
game
also
before
has
it
attack
existed
strings
that
and
might have been
individual
developed
combos.
alongside one of your
But Mortal
most important
Kombat is
games
a
of all
2D
time,
game.
Street Fighter.
What was it that made Virtua Fighter play like
Hang on.
a 3D game, not just look like it?
Hang on.
And a juggle-centric combo system to modern Mortal game of the archetypal 3D fighter, and in a way, there are a lot of parallels to modern Mortal Kombat, which also has attack strings with mids and a juggle-centric combo system.
Oh.
But Mortal Kombat is a 2D game. What was it that made Virtua Fighter play like a 3D game, not just look like it?
That's
In
so
3D fighting games,
fascinating.
you cannot
Like,
hit a knock-
yes, there is obviously this connection here. only to modern Mortal. I'm like, really? No. There are some very, very clear connections to Mortal Kombat there, right? This is like, once again, I called it, man. You can use and probably should use the combat systems and the combat mechanics, the strings, the button layouts, the attack types. Those things should be what is informing the games that followed Mortal Kombat, as opposed to the block versus non-block. We haven't even gotten to the non-blocking, right? Oh God. Okay. Is Joe P? Maybe you would know. Is there another more experienced Mortal Kombat player? Some people turn every game into non-blocking. So dial-a-combos. Did dial-a-combos exist in MK1, or was that an MK2 introduction? I thought they did, but like, in fairness, my MK memory is a little fuzzy. That was an MK3 introduction. Ah, okay. Okay. No, that's fair. And that's totally fair, right? And I mean, actually, probably a good time to say that, like, right? Like, there are some things that Corey has said in this, which I'm like, not true. Like the air dashing with Wingnut. Come on. But that's fair. Your experience and your like history with these games is going to inform where you come from, and that is going to create some blind spots, right? And that's it. MK is admittedly a blind spot for me. So I have kind of like compressed the MK through UMK3 mythology in my head. Yeah, MK3 was the proximity normals that would lead to where you dial the rest of it in. MK2 had single hits unless you count the repeating jabs. Yeah. MK2 did have unique attacks, but all the combos were links. Okay, that is absolutely fair. That is absolutely fair. And I retract my smug criticism.
Knock down opponent by default. The attack just goes through them.
Right.
This was likely preferable to being able to always hit them.
Even still, right? You could still argue that the high-low
kind of
punch-kick dynamic of Mortal Kombat and the blocking style could still easily lead into Virtua Fighter if you wanted to take that approach.
Side roll into the background or foreground. This paved the way for the sophisticated get-up games 3D games are known for, and over time, 2D games started to add more get-up options to have more counterplay against
I like it.
setups.
Okay, no, I like it. What's a 5D fighting game, guys?
By the late 90s, the market was saturated with fighting games that were based on both the 2D and 3D archetypes, so naturally there would be games that combined aspects of both. In 1997, Capcom released Rival Schools, which had the familiar gameplay of 2D games like high jumping,
yeah, with
magic
multiverse time
and
travel,
special attack cancels, but it also allowed you to sidestep into the background like in a 3D game. But these games were not very common, and even Fighting Layer, which started its series with this kind of gameplay, ended up shifting over to a more conventional 2.5D fighting game, though it looks like they're going back. There isn't a particular term for games that play like 2D fighting games while utilizing a 3D plane.
Yeah, so 5D?
Now, I'll just call them 5D fighting games.
Come on!
2 + 3 = 5? I don't know. Maybe it'll become a thing when Tekken Cross Street Fighter comes.
See, and this is, okay, we have had this argument before in the digital basement, all right? That, yeah, the 2.5D term being used, well, it is largely used to describe 2D games with 3D graphics. It should probably be used more for games like this. Like, we have it, right? But once again, is that a distinguishing feature for a branching point in a subgenre? I mean, if you want to get into like the doom rock with like djembe, I don't know, man. Like there are some wild subgenres that get very granular when it comes to music. And I guess you could do that. But like you could probably say that, yeah, if you have I mean, Okay, no, we're not going to get into the definition of 3D versus 2D right now because that's going to get complicated. But yeah, it could either just be a 3D game that has mobility options, or it could be a 2D game that has mobility options. Like, once again, if we break it down too granularly, you end up in these situations where you have to branch off, and it can create some, I would say, meaningless distinctions. Like, it's a distinction without a difference. It's a distinction that is worth analysis in its own right, but not in terms of framing the genre.
Comes out.
We had
But there's you to do a three-way jump upward,
Oh, okay.
where you can jump downwards. There's a game called Antinomy of Common Flower.
Antinomy of Common Flower. Yo, shout
It
outs.
allows you to do a three-way jump upwards or downwards, with the middle of the screen being the quote-unquote
It's really
ground,
cool. Someone
but
mentioned
somehow the center
a
of
flying
gravity with the
fighting
character
game.
floating in the air. This means you can do an instant down-back jump forward air dash cross-up. Just imagine a 5D version of this game. At the other end, there are also ultra-minimalist fighting games like Dive Kick that only uses 2 buttons and has no blocking. All these games
So
take
it should be
assortment
under
of
no
aspects
blocking.
of all the categories to concoct something unique while still being based on the archetype.
Wait,
These
wait.
games are to fighting games what platypuses are to mammals, and so we have the archetypal other category. If you've made it this far, congrats. This
No. I'm sorry. You don't get to make. Okay, we have done nothing with. We have gone through all of the archetypal ones. We have an entire ass category that is no hold back to block, and you're gonna put fucking Dive Kick on the other end of and some other category? This is so weird. Cause yeah, yo, KO, I'm with you, man. Like, I really genuinely really enjoy all of the, like, the journey that we get brought on from, like, this is the initial concept, and we go through here, and it's like, oh, look at all these interesting aspects of games and how they interact and how they influence each other. And then I'm like, but how did you get to that conclusion, right? It's not under non-traditional? How is it not under non-traditional? There's an other within archetypal only because you are basing the archetype on a singular game, right? This is, one of the first things that I laid down was that if you're only stemming this from Street Fighter 2 being your archetypal traditional fighting game, that's going to color every single bit of information and categorization that comes after, right? And so we have nothing under, so seriously, like, this insinuates that Mortal Kombat is a genealogical dead end. How would you even classify 15.5? Like, you could probably classify it under platform fighter if you really wanted to, right? But like, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, once again, like, my internal framing for building out the picture of the fighting game genre is so fundamentally different to what Core Gaming is doing with this that it's hard for me to, like, pick any one of these down the line and say where should it fit in his, right? Because, like, I haven't gone through my process of doing it. Like, my archetypal game probably wouldn't be the same up here, and my diversion points definitely wouldn't be the same. If I had to choose between SF and Tekken, what is it closer to? I mean, instinctually, I say Street Fighter. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, right. And this being something that stems from a 2D gamer or 2D fighting gamer's perspective, primarily. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna. I don't know Gerald from Core Gaming. So maybe he is. Maybe he only played Tekken growing up, right? But this analysis is coming through the 2D fighting game perspective. And so, yeah, you have this 3D fighting game thing here, and it's a Street Fighter perspective, so you have Mortal Kombat here and then fucking nothing, right? And then you have this very, very nuanced bit, which is, once again, all internally consistent, though, except for Dive Kick. Like, Dive Kick really sticks out like a sore thumb being thrown over here into other/5D. Especially since the 5D category was created based on 2.5D, which is like 3D movement and evasion within a primarily 2D frame. So like how you're getting to that, I'm not entirely sure. Bloody Roar Erasure, what are we doing here?
Covers all the fighting game types based on the archetype, but there's still another half of the fighting game tree where things get really interesting.
My dude, there's still a whole other half of the half that you've gone through that needs more exploration. And this is why, like, we spent 2 hours. Okay, like, their first chapter lasted 3 minutes and 16 seconds. We spent 2 hours just defining our canonical games, right? And Corey was like, in the span of 3 minutes, was like, it's Street Fighter, right? Which fair, like if you want that to be your starting point, then that's totally, obviously, that's totally cool. But once again, look at how that colors everything that's come since.
One day, game designer Masahiro Sakurai was at an arcade destroying someone in King of Fighters.
And if
found out the players
Smash
on the other
is going to
side
be
were a
your
couple who had no
archetypal
idea what they were doing,
non-traditional,
he felt terrible.
this is also
It
going
inspired
to
him make an accessible
inherently
fighting game
color
called Super
everything
Smash
that
Bros.,
comes
released
with
in
it, or like comes beneath it.
1999. This game was also a 2D game with a side perspective, but it deviated so much from the original fighting game archetype that
Where's
people
Outfoxies?
wondered if it could even be called a fighting game. The most
Guys,
obvious
where's
difference is
Outfoxies?
the percentage system and stocks instead of life bars and rounds. The goal is to knock your opponent off the edge of the screen to eliminate their stocks.
You have to
and
choose
hitting
a
them
cutoff
increases their
point
percentage,
at some
which
point.
increases
I
how
get
far
it.
they get knocked back.
I understand.
The combat itself also
There's
takes a
gonna
very
be
different approach.
proto games
Remember all
that
talk
don't
about
quite
cross-ups,
fall into the
left, right,
canon,
high-low
but are
mix-ups, scary mids,
undoubtedly,
overheads,
like
chicken blocking?
undoubtedly
In
important
Smash, None
games.
of that exists because there is
But
no auto-facing, and the
You
game's
gotta
controls are
draw the line.
indifferent to
But
what side
no
you're on.
Outfoxies?
You just move left and right.
You did get some
instead of
Power
putting a
Stone?
2D hold back system. Holding the shield button will activate
course,
a protective
shield.
bubble that covers your entire body until it shrinks. The exposed parts of the body
Oh, I just
are
skipped
then
it.
with this intuitive shielding system. Holding the shield button will activate a protective bubble that covers your entire body until it shrinks.
Shrek Super
The
Slam,
exposed
come
parts of the
on.
body are then vulnerable. This is much more intuitive than explaining to someone why this is a high attack. You also don't
Shield
have to
is just a
explain
block
most
button,
inputs
put it
because
under Mortal
Smash did away
Kombat.
with them in favor of a special attack button that does different things depending on what direction you're holding. If you've noticed, the way Smash works is like the many side-scrolling platformers you've played before. But also like platformers, the control you have over running and jumping is unlike anything in the archetypal games, even Marvel. In addition to double jumping, drifting, and short hopping, you can choose to fall faster by tapping down.
Oh, no.
You can also control the trajectory.
Wait a sec, but those were all aspects of versus games. Like, those were some of the core features, the high order values that they identified for the versus game subgenre. Yeah. And look, yeah, there is 100%. Like, I mean, it's a YouTube video essay, and it's following the YouTube video essay format in a way that, yeah, it does that. Like, you get, I don't think it's even intentional obfuscation. It's just the way that these things are constructed. You have so many talking points, and there are, in fairness, like, as a writer and as a creator, there are so many things that I want to convey to you that don't necessarily fit into my core thesis. You got to edit those things out, man, because the core thesis is more important. Like, the things that you have should be serving your core thesis. And so, like, while I really appreciate all of these, like, implications that they're talking about, they're not serving that core thesis. And you get this weird bit of, like, yeah, talking about everything while not actually saying the thing that you end up coming to the conclusion to. It's interesting. Yo, what's up, Mohast? Yeah, I don't think this is intentional obfuscation to be like to hoodwink anyone or anything like that. But I think like in terms of media analysis, I've been talking a lot with friends recently about like how media literacy is dying, right? Part of the being like having media literacy and interpreting these things is being able to suss out where people's biases are, right? And the core bias here stems from Street Fighter and 2D fighting games, and then like some of the conclusions they drew from them being the primary thing. And it's important to note. But then it brings up situations like this where you're like, DI, no DI, variable movement in the air. That was such a core feature of defining an entire fork of the genre that why is this over here and all, right? Like, I don't know. Shouldn't that be placed somewhere over here instead?
Of your character when getting knocked around, which is known as directional influence.
Holding on, DIing in so he doesn't get pushed off.
They defined around SF and MK and Tekken, and now they are addressing Smash after the framework is built. Yeah, absolutely. It's post hoc.
At a protractor measured angle.
This level of control is why
it's also a little ad hoc.
Conversation in Smash at the highest levels, especially in Melee. It's no wonder Smash players call hold back to block games traditional. But as different as Smash is from the 2D and 3D fighting game archetypes, Smash has mechanics inspired by those games, like short hop attacks, roll, which makes you briefly invincible, and spot dodge, which are all mechanics found in King of Fighters.
Okay, so he's addressing it.
Similar game in terms of movement is probably KOF, where you have a lot of...
And this makes sense. There is a documented connection between KOF and SNK games and the influence that Sakurai took in making Smash Brothers. Which, frankly, is why Smash Brothers and SNK games like Fatal Fury and King of Fighters belong in a larger fighting game canon that represents the genre.
Smash, and more recently, through Dragon Ball.
Smash must make me young, man. What the hell?
This is two different Evo titles in two different fighting games. Like we talk about rarefied air.
I think a lot of traditional fighting game players think that Smash is, like has very different mechanics and stuff like that. The step from like a
some big feelings, man. Yeah.
Gear or Tekken to Smash is probably not nearly as big as they think. They can sometimes have pretty.
I am legitimately fascinated that this is the direction it went in. But like I said, I think taking a strict genealogical approach is what this results in.
As much in for as long sequences, but it's not that different from someone who gets edge guarded for 30 seconds and then barely makes it back. That said, though, I think it does take.
Yeah, Bab, absolutely.
The other, if you're used to one.
Now
and Smash Brothers, and for sure I think there is a discussion to be had. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Smash Brothers is 100% a fighting game. Smash Brothers is not necessarily the FGC. There are very, very distinct cultural differences between those groups, and like Smash has a culture to its own that is kind of separate from the FGC, but it's a fighting game through and through. And yeah, it 100% belongs at the top because you see these things, right? And you got to, we did get to the, the hyper fighters, the versus style games and their variable motion, their hyper jumps, their directional influence and their super jumps and stuff, as well as DI and Smash Brothers. And those have fed into modern games. And it's not fair to call... If the directional influence is such a core aspect, you might have to classify Duels of Fortune as an offshoot of Smash Brothers, which is not necessarily where it should be placed in a strict hierarchy, right? But could easily have taken influence from Darkstalkers and Children of the Atom and Smash Brothers and Outfoxies, right? It is a fighting game community, but is not FGC. Yeah, 100%. And there are, and those differences, right? I mean, the idea that Smash Brothers does not have a health bar is, right? And look at what happened. Look at what happened. One of the very, very first one, in the introduction, in the first 3 minutes, they were like, having visible health bars that deplete in a bar form towards the center of the stage is a core part of fighting games. And so when you have Smash Brothers that has a percentage thing, right? Suddenly it has to be an offshoot. That is so fundamentally different that if this is an essential part of it, Smash must be over here. but it is far more accurate to have Smash next to Street Fighter in that way.
There are many platform fighting games made by indie developers and large studios alike, and major tournaments.
But yeah,
like
I'm not
Genesis
comfortable
that
saying that
specialize
Duels
in
of
these
Fortune
games.
and Frostfire
Without a doubt,
and
the Platform Fighter
those
deserves
kinds of
its own
games
subcategory under hybrid. The rock equivalent here
are
would be
platform
the Beastie
hybrid
Boys,
as
who
opposed to
combined
being more
hip-hop with
influenced from
rock
those other
music,
games.
inspiring a new sound that would explode in the 90s to the consternation of purists.
Oh my god, we're going into new
Platform
metal!
fighting games are a thing, but what about fighting game platformers?
Please,
Before
Graf,
Smash,
they
there was a
should. They
game
should
called
just make
Mortal Kombat Mythology
Street Fighter all
Sub-Zero,
percent base now.
a side-scrolling platformer game that took place in the Mortal Kombat universe. It was a cool idea, but they
This
forced the
is
archetypal 2D
fighting game
controls
adjacent,
in a side-scrolling
right?
platformer
Oh my
game,
god.
which ended up
Are they
being
gonna
a
include
hilarious mess.
puzzle
They kept
games
the
under
gateway
this?
jump,
This is what's
motion
happening,
inputs,
right?
and backwards
Twinkle
and
Star
forward walking.
Sprites, Puzzle
Because it's a
Fighter,
platformer,
those
it's
games are
sometimes
all
got
gonna
to
go
walk
under
in the
here,
other
aren't
direction
they?
To get somewhere. Their solution? A
Oh
turn
no.
around button.
Oh no.
Fighting game platformer never took off.
Yes,
and
they are.
Mortal Kombat Mythologies became its own thing, but that's not always bad. All sorts of unlikely genres have crossed over into fighting game territory with great results. Bust a Groove is a 1v1 rhythm game where you can attack your opponent.
Fighting
and
game
they can
adjacent.
Attempt to dodge. Puzzle games have versus modes where
Fighting
you
game
can give your
adjacent.
opponent garbage. Tennis games can have supers, and so can Pong. You can PvP.
Bust a
in
Groove is a
MOBA
deep cut,
or
though. I like
action
that.
RPGs. And of course, there's Maiden and Spell, a 1v1
Yes.
bullet hell game. These games might not have any martial arts combat, but they have other elements of the archetype that give those games their fighting gaminess, and the most fighting gamey thing of all is a 1v1 zero-sum versus.
Oh.
Because each of these
See, okay, yeah, and once again, right? Like, I genuinely believe you do a disservice to the discussion when you are so closely tied to a single value, right? Like, bringing it back to the basement interpretation, what gives a fighting game its fighting gaminess is so much more than any one thing, right? It is the intersection of all of these various features. Cause that's it. Like, yo, cause if they put martial arts games under this category, then what about the OG? Like, fighting games don't exist without combat sports games. Fighting games do not exist without Heavyweight Champ. Fighting games do not exist without Karate Champ and Karateka, and like, they just don't. And so having this other thing here, which would put those proto games under that category instead, is so weird. Like, that is, I don't know, man. I don't think that's a super helpful distinction. And, well, yeah, and how many of these things, right? Because we have not done any distinguishing between high order and low order values. You just have 1v1. Well, this contains a 1v1 mode, so it must be under there, right?
Hybrid games are so unique without the constellation of varieties that platform fighters have. They
I'm taking a
belong
minute.
in the hybrid other category.
Hybrid
But I'd
other,
argue
okay.
There's also a genre crossover game where you are undeniably in a martial arts fight, more so than in any of the games I mentioned.
Fucking martial
These
arts
games
category.
focus so much on realism, they don't play much like the archetypal fighting games at all, and have things like
That's
one-hit
so funny.
kills in the case of Bushido Blade, and even doctors who can stop fights in EA UFC.
That's so funny.
The doctor mechanic. The crossover genre here is simulator. And if you doubt there should be a distinction between a typical fighting game and a fighting simulator, consider the difference between Gran Turismo, a game that has turned players into actual professional race car drivers, and Mario Kart, a racing game where you can turn into a bullet. The difference is that fighting sims are not nearly as common, so off to the other category they go.
Oh, it's just because they're not common enough? Damn, man. Dude, I guess, what? When do 3D fighters then get shuffled off into the other 5D category, right? Bushido Blade not being a 3D fighting game is, yeah, a big smell that something is wrong. Yo, absolutely. Absolutely. And I am down, like, martial arts, combat sports would absolutely get its own subcategory. Things like UFC, things like WWE, right? Like, yeah. Those games, 100%. But seeing UFC and Bushido Blade in the same category is making the hair on the back of your neck stand up, right, Funk? That's so fucking funny. And legitimately, if you're just going to use frequency of releases, at what point do 3D fighters get relegated to other, right? Because there's a dearth of 3D fighters available, right? So, and especially if games like Bushido Blade are getting excised from the 3D fighter category and being shuffled over into hybrid, right? Like, yeah, man, there's only Tekken left. How often do you get a Tekken game? Shit. It's fucking, it's off to dive kick apparently with you.
But there is one more fighting game hybrid type that deserves its own subcategory.
Arena fighters.
The arena fighter.
Cool. I'm down with this, guys.
One of the
Okay.
biggest things in common archetypal fighting games have with Smash is that these games all use a side view perspective. So what happens if you don't? In 1993, Sega released a game called Dark Edge, which was an early attempt at an 8-way movement 3D fighting game with 2D sprites, but the camera did not rotate with the players. This caused all sorts of problems, one of which was players' bodies obscuring the opponent.
Wait, this is where we stem arena fighters from?
If you were in the background, you could hold up.
What year is it?
Dark Edge. What happens if you don't? In 1993, Sega released
1993. Okay, let me double check something here. I would argue that 1990's Pit Fighter,
which was an early attempt at an 8-way movement,
is a better starting point than this.
But the camera did not rotate with the players. This caused all sorts of problems.
What about King of Monsters? Yo, Punk! I knew you were gonna come in clutch.
They kept hold back to block, which meant if you were in the background, you could hold up to block and do half circle downward special moves. Good luck doing an upside down SNK motion from each direction.
Oh yeah, no, that's torture.
Reposition and attack upwards and downwards, complete with matching sprites, was novel, but the 8-way free ground movement had been around forever in the form of wrestling games and co-op beat-em-up games in the 80s. Later, SNK took this control scheme, added left-right auto-facing, and made the fighting game aggressive.
Okay, they threw it in there. Aggressive of dark combat is where we're going.
Movement before the fight starts. It's starting to feel like there's nothing SNK
I take it back. I don't.
But you still can't attack upwards and downwards.
I love 80K. Yo,
until 3D
I am so happy it gets some representation. I'm not sure where the fuck we're going with this one, though.
A polygonal fighting game with free ground movement and Final Fantasy VII characters. The camera is higher this time to prevent characters obscuring each other, and the characters can face any direction. To autoface, you must hold down the guard button, which locks onto your opponent, kind of.
Yo, I do love some air geese.
But they ambitiously kept the high-low blocking system where you could block low by either holding guard and being still, or block high by either holding guard.
I will say, I am very, very impressed.
Still without holding guard. Did you get all that?
I'm very, very impressed with, like, through all of these twists and turns, they are still bringing it back to their core concepts, right? Like, their core idea that Street Fighter defined it and blocking was the defining feature is still informing all of these decisions.
But a year later, Capcom simplified things with the game Power
Stone. No, and so, Mohas, this is, yeah, I think some of us are coming at us from a not super healthy perspective. He clearly has an angle. Are we trying to gotcha a good faith actor? No, that is 100% not my intent, right? Like, my reaction here is 100% indicative of how far my personal perspective is from Gerald's at Core Gaming's when it comes to defining genres, right? I think there are some reaches. I think some of what they're proposing is a bit of a reach. But like, I think this is all done in good faith, and like I said, it's all been fairly internally consistent, right? I think with the exception of maybe the dive kick and now the hybrid stuff, right? But once again, this is what I said. Like, you paint yourself into a bit of a corner when you get so granular, right? You've gone so granular in terms of this one feature of blocking, and the way that you input it is your diversion point, is your branching path, right? And you can do that, right? And he did it really well, actually, most of it, all the way down to the end of the traditional fighter thing. But now you have painted yourself into a corner, because blocking had to lead to this, which blocking led to different blocking types, which led to chain combos and cross-ups. So all of those things now are applied to the hybrid fighter, which throws them off in terms of, I think, where they are like reasonably going to, which should be reasonably positioned.
Blocking and no locking.
Right? Because like, I'm surprised that we had to go through air geese and aggressors of dark combat to get to Power Stone.
These games have a sort of isometric perspective where the camera has a limited range of movement and rotation. It's like playing a fighting game in a diorama.
What's a diorama?
But arena fighters like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm have a camera that moves much more freely and rotates around the arena.
And once again, we get to some, I think the most valuable thing about a video like this is getting into some of the nitty-gritty about these things, right? Like, he is teasing some really interesting connections and parallels between fairly disparate games, which goes to show the strength of a genre, right? Like, it goes a really long way to show the power of genre when you can see Tenkaichi and Karateka as one of the same, right? Even though, and he started off by being like, fighting games are indistinguishable, but like, when you look at the importance and what informs a genre, you can see how even things outside of that are actually closer to the core, right? And I think that's it, where it's like, this is doing a lot to exclude, right? I think that's why I don't particularly vibe with this interpretation, right? And the basement interpretation was all about being inclusive about games and how they have contributed to the genre. And this is about saying, you are this and you are not that, right? And those can be fun, like, over drinks kind of arguments, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't think that is informative of the wider understanding of the genre and how we as players and developers can learn from other games and expand the scope of what's possible with the fighting game genre.
Fighting games have missiles or missile-like attacks, but only the third-person shooter.
All right, bullets and missiles, right? And once again, okay, so we're going through here now. It's like, okay, once again, they went through the idea of cross-ups being an implication of block types, and now they're going through arena fighters and other aspects and, like, interactables leading to projectiles and firearms, right? And then also talking about perspective. So, like, let's... right? Because we're getting to this, right? And I find it fascinating that this setup leads to, right? And once again, I don't think this is this is not a condemnation of Core Gaming at all, right? But I think this illustrates Mortal Kombat here being technically a genealogical dead end in this framework is kind of indicative of some of the limitations of the framework.
But just to be complete, what about the first-person fighting game? Games and game types create a diverse...
Right, first-person fighting games, 2KO, like, okay, and then... Okay, we get it. MK is all alone over there, ARMS being an arena fighter. I mean, I can see the argument for ARMS being an arena fighter. This is... Genuinely, this is a really interesting exploration. I'm so happy that somebody else is out there doing this kind of genealogical look. I think in the grand scheme of things, this serves a great purpose to follow some through lines, right? it is infinitely fascinating to me that Gerald was like, or Corey was like, hey, this is where I'm going with it, right? Like, he gets to a point and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I really like that, right? And then he's like, and that means that this follows. And I was like, oh, I didn't see that, right? And it led me down a very interesting path. I think using different frameworks to look at the games we play and our community and our genre is important, right? And it will inform some things. And some of the connections that they made, like I do genuinely love the bit about how you block informed cross-ups, which are a very important part of many aspects of combat in terms of, right, that informs Oki, that informs mix-ups, that informs, right, starters, that inform, like, all these things. And then, like, how that leads to, well, then if there is different ways to block, there are different ways to attack, and how do those things intersect, right? I really like that, but yeah, but I wouldn't have gone from like Street Fighter to how you block in Street Fighter to, right, and that being the core of it. And that's really where it does stem from, right? But also that, yeah, like, it is fun and it is interesting to get into the granular discussions. And those, they absolutely have value in and of themselves. But I find it interesting that it was this was proposed as we are going to explain all the genres of fighting games, right? And I think some of the aspects that he chose to define those subgenres are for me personally not the things that I care about with those subgenres, like as primary concerns, right? Like and because I think because those are not the things that I would have latched onto, my genealogical tree, if I were to do this, would look extremely different. And one thing I said, actually, even from just a more conceptual point of view, right? Like, he's doing genealogy from the point of view of the games themselves being and what they do and how they express their systems being the line that you're drawing, the genealogical line that you're drawing. I, for one, think that you could probably find some of that if you instead go through the creators and the designers, right? Where looking at the Street Fighter 1 developer, who I cannot for the life of me remember their name off the top of my head, moving on to SNK, which then, fueled Capcom and their design choices going forward, right? Like, you can follow what happened with Street Fighter 1 and what happened with the early SNK fighting games and draw a genealogy that way. And that could be really cool, right? Looking at, Ed Boon wanted to make a martial arts game in 1989, right? That was like, Mortal Kombat was conceptualized in 1989 in the wake of Van Damme's Bloodsport. And then what happened around that time? 1990 was Pit Fighter. So Mortal Kombat, while very, very clearly the game that came out in 1992 was a reaction to the massive success of Street Fighter 2 and also the huge success of SNK games, its genesis was more of a reaction to Pit Fighter, who would probably be the closest comparison that they had at the time to something that they wanted to do, a combat fighting style game that they wanted to create. They had Street Fighter 1 and Pit Fighter as their primary points of reference, right? So you could draw the genealogy that way instead. And I think that could be also an interesting look. But once again, this is, right, like, we took the broader umbrella approach with the basement interpretation. Core Gaming took the much more granular and linear genealogical approach in terms of the way the games function. But you could also do that with the creators and the publishers and the developers. Or you could, right, like, you could create a basement interpretation or a genealogy of just any given subgenre, right? Like, you could pick any one of the juncture points in this video and then go out from there with your own core values, right? Or your own high order and low order values, and make your decisions about where things fall and how they get categorized. But like, yeah, or any of the juncture points could be different values, right? Once again, blocking, not one of my high order values necessarily, definitely not the blocking input type. So if I instead had point of view, right, screen reference be the core thing, that would have trickled down very differently. Mortal Kombat wouldn't have been sectioned off from Street Fighter and the other traditional fighting games, which would have influenced all of the other subcategories down there, right? 3D fighting games would have, by virtue, had to have been larger, and you would have gotten all of the hybrid games under your 3D fighting game categories, right? By just making one change, moving from block to camera perspective, that's what would have done it. Yeah, I would have chosen a different framework from the author's positions, though some of it feels fair as well. And it is absolutely. Like we have gone no signal because we have been having a great conversation. Yeah, no, this is a good place to take a little bit of a break and move on from the Core Gaming video. But just to say, yes, that Punk, I agree with you, right? I would have personally chosen different ones, and I think anybody choosing a different juncture point, the Junkshire point, could have drastically different results in how this kind of flowchart would be built, right? And much like what I hope people have at least been doing internally with the basement interpretation, or did when we did our stream, that people will build their own framework and apply it to their own games. That people will also look at what Core Gaming is doing here with this kind of framework and develop their own, like, modeled after it, and see where their priorities lie and what defines what makes a fighting game for you. I mean, fighters are the dumbest and the most brilliant thing, much like fighting game players, where it's like, I will play a fighting game and I will simultaneously be the smartest human being on the face of the planet and the dumbest motherfucker ever. So too are fighting games brilliant and absolutely dumb. Yo, all right, friends. This was a freaking amazing chat. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna come back in just a minute. Yeah, and I hope it starts a larger conversation. I absolutely hope it does. All right, I am gonna come back in just a minute. I need to get myself a drink. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna take a look at a little bit of hardware, a little retro gaming hardware that I picked up last week. The Capcom Power Stick Fighter for exciting entertainment computer games. So we're gonna take a look at that and we're gonna test out this new old piece of hardware that I found. All right, stick with me, friends. I'll be back in just a minute. Yo, welcome back, everybody, to Niche Fighter Monday. We are hanging out in the digital basement. Thank you all for being here. Yo, that was an amazing little chat. I hope some folks appreciate the FGC analysis, video analysis, and have maybe, we'll think through some of what they perceive about the genre through this new and interesting lens. Big shout outs to Core Gaming for coming out with another video, and helping to make us think about these games in a bit of a different way. Alrighty. Yeah, looking forward to the next video in 2031, exactly. All right, man. So what are we playing today? Like I said, I want to test out this little bit of kit that I picked up. So the Capcom Power Stick Fighter is a Super Nintendo. It's actually a multi-console arcade stick. It works on the Super Nintendo, of course, the NES. It works on the CP changer, the CPS changer system, and it also works on the FM Towns. Did you know there was an FM Towns version of Street Fighter 2? Like, it's kind of hilarious. So yeah, this thing is like, look, it's got a bit of a, yeah, I could see where you got that, right? But like, yeah, it's got a bit of actually this like winged shape, which actually kind of works. It's almost like a split box in some ways, right? But it has 6-button. It's got a bunch of turbo functionality on the side here, and it's got a very nice arcade stick. And the lever actually uses the same micro switches. It uses the same micro switches as the NES Zapper. So you get a very clicky tactile experience. You don't get the boing from the spring on the trigger itself, but the actual, like that click you would get right before the trigger would go down and spring back, that is the micro switch that is used for these levers. One of the really cool things about it, like there are, let me see if I can, oh, yeah. Right, so there is the cable here, and there's another port beside it. And so this cable is detachable, and the stick originally came with 2 sets of cables, one for the Super Nintendo and one for the NES. And then there's that other port there, right? And that other port is actually what the wireless adapter unit comes in. So there's a wireless adapter unit that fits in this whole slot and plugs in to this second port here, and it like sticks out, protrudes by about an inch, and it gives you wireless functionality, like and it comes with an IR receiver, right? That you can hook up to for wireless. The thing is that it's only the Japanese version that has the wireless functionality. The North American version, which was renamed the Capcom Fighter Power Stick, uses the exact same mold, looks exactly the same, except they removed the wireless functionality from the PCB itself, probably as like a cost-saving feature. So like, it is kind of wild. And so I stumbled across this at I stumbled across this at a pawn shop. And so from what I can tell, all of the Japanese versions that I found have this sticker on the bottom with the model numbers, right? But the North American versions do not have that, from all of the like documentation that I could find. So I think I stumbled across the Japanese version of this stick, which would be freaking amazing, because I got it for like a steal, man. It was like 35 bucks Canadian. But I don't know, like a like it's not metal body, it's all plastic molded, right? But a decent molded arcade stick with a... Okay, it's not a proper 6-button layout, in fairness. The button layout is very weird, and it actually, Street Fighter II World Warrior for the NES has a pre-baked custom layout that works specifically with this stick, because it's a weird, like, okay, so it's a weird cross position. Let me... Yeah. So if you check out here, you can see that the bottom 3 are purple, and so is this. This is YBA, and then X in the middle. And then your R and L are the gray ones at the top. So this stick doesn't play nice with most Super Nintendo fighting games. And Capcom had to pre-bake its own fucking layout so it would work properly with Street Fighter even. I don't know why they did that, right? Thankfully, when you're playing on an emulator, so I've got this hooked up to my PC with a SNES to USB adapter, right? So if you do that, thankfully, you can just button layout your buttons however you want. And so you can make it work well with all of the Super Nintendo games. Except it doesn't recognize diagonal directions because of the micro switches. Like it doesn't, I have not been able to get it to recognize the diagonal. So playing Super Nintendo games in Fightcade is impossible because you can't jump forward, jump back, or down forward. Womp womp, right? But if you set it up in BizHawk or something else like that, then it works fine. So what Super Nintendo... What Super Nintendo fighting game do we want to play? Don't set it up in RetroArch, the world might explode. But yeah. Well, no, I can just, I'm just gonna pick up a ROM and test it out in BizHawk, which should let me play something fine. Alternatively, any other emulator in Fightcade other than a Super Nintendo emulator. God, is Tough Enough. All right. Oh, TMNT TF. Excellent idea. Excellent idea. All right, we got a couple games. Let's test this stuff out. Dude, Tough Enough. Let's get this set up. Oh, can I get this set up in my other one here? All right, I got a better layout. Hang on a sec. Might be the oldest game with replays. All right, here. We even got the hand cam today. Let me... Whoops. Bum, 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 bum. Oh my god, where are my transform options, man? Flip vertical. There we go. I got you covered. Can I? No, it is not configured. Select start. BXA. I don't even know what I'm getting myself into here. Show Zazie. Oh, I get to just pick my enemy. All right. Okay, we have kicks. It's just 4 buttons? All right. Cool, that lets you actually pick anyone to play as. Awesome. Oh, dang. Oh, damn. The hit stun in this is kind of wild, eh? All right, what do I have for specials here? I see... Ow. Charge forward move. Forward back heavy punch. Are you serious? It's a card game. Oh, geez. Is that it? Okay, Zazzy's got an air throw. All right. All right. Okay, back to down forward. Thought I had a Wii U pad out. No, not quite. Oh my. Oh, this is real. This replay feature is real. We got step through? Yo, that's wild. Okay, hang on. Let me go and get this. Main menu, left, right, left. All right. Are you talking L or R buttons? Yeah, here lies the loser. Left, right directions. Yeah, okay. Rip Zazie. It's one of your favorites, isn't it, Mohast? I'm doing it everywhere. Yo, this, like, arcade stick actually feels really good, though, eh? Okay, let's go. Vorts. It is a very clicky, it is a very chunky and clicky guy. No, four-way gate. So it's square gate. Oh my. Are we charge again? Yeah, we are. Okay. On the menu with the 3 scrolling... Alright, charge back, forward, kick, and then quarter circle and half circle, throw. Okay. Ow. What does this dude have on his hands? After the... Oh, at that screen. Yeah, K-dashes. Upgraded K-dash. Nice. Okay, okay. Let me reset this. Oh, of course. Of course. In the year 2151, everyone has metal hands like that. All right. Okay, but isn't it just gonna put me into something? Two, three. Didn't seem to do it when I did it fast. I didn't seem to get it when I let it scroll. It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna... I've got more than enough characters. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the assist. Oh, dang. All right. All right. Man, charge characters. Seriously. Everyone's like, It's everyone thinks the Dragon Punch is the like iconic fighting game input, man. Looking back in the history of it though, it's charge moves. Back forward kick. Oh, that doesn't actually require a charge. Oh, that's sweet. And then that. Back forward punch, quarter circle back punch. Ah, okay, she has a rushing attack. Nice. Oh, no anti-air. Damn, that's never mind, it's punishable on hit. Yo, so, like, everything is so committal. I know. Feels bad, right? Punishable on hit? That feels bad, man. Dude, and it is not okay. I was like, what the hell is that? That's the incinerator, man. You were about to get cremated? All right, Dolph. Let's go. Oh, dear Lord. It's Rolento's uncle. Yo! I see why you might want to play as Dolph, though. I definitely see it. Yo, that is fast! Oh my god. Why did that hit me crouching? Is this rocket an overhead? Right? Oh, if only the replay went back a little bit further. Right? What is it? Left 3 times, right 3 times, left 3 times, press start. Like, all I'm saying is I've done this. Yeah. Yeah, 3, 3, 7. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. I did it. I waited. I'm not sure. I don't know the history of Tough Enough. Oh god. Why was he getting drawn towards me? Come on. Does my dude... Right? I was... Yeah, that's it. Okay. He only has 3 buttons? The boss character control syndrome. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just like, I just had to make sure. I'm like, did my button die? Did... Oh, okay, that's the anti-air button though. Oh, he does have the button in the air. It's just not a grounded one. Yeah, yo, the startup is kind of silly, but once you got them... Oh, it doesn't interact. Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say that, Punk. The round counter is super cool. I love how it's like ticks on a scoreboard or on a scorecard, right? Yeah, this entire game strikes me as odd but charming. All right. Let's go, Gadget. Whoop. Whoop. Okay, I keep getting... I gotta watch, because I keep getting up inputs. Ow, can't get over the kunai. He is. I think he's just a head swap. With some different moves, right? Oh, come on. All right. I am not tough enough. Oh, this is the NES TMNT tournament fighters that I picked up. Whoops. Right? Pretty sure this is the NES one. Yep. Alright, hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. We'll get it in 8 seconds. I really love how this stick is designed for both the NES and the Super Nintendo, though. Honestly, that's really cool because it's like, it's in terms of like what they have to do with the controllers for the cables, it's not that much work to actually get that functional. Like, you can make your own cables pretty easily. Right, cause... No, that's why. Okay, hang on a sec, hang on a sec. I think I actually might have. Oh no. XA. Save. All right, I think this is gonna be set up properly. Yeah, the super mechanics in TMNT Tournament Fighters for the NES are super cool. Like the Power Ball or Super Ball or whatever. It's an interesting way to like do it when you're like, we can't do super moves, like convincingly. Turtle Combat. All right, the first Air Dasher. It's official, guys. We have found the first instance of an air dash. Hello, Wingnut. I don't even know what the hell the input is, man. I'm not even sure. Yo, chase him down. Why is it like this? Guys, why is Wingnut like this? No, I downloaded the NES version. Oh, there you go. The Armagon anti-air. All right. All right. So it's light punch and heavy punch. Yeah. There we go. There's our air dash. Nope. Looking for an maybe Clay Fighter. Clay Fighter is another option. I really wish my I wish this stick would work on could read the diagonals and work properly on Fightcade. Or at least Fightcade Super Nintendo. It does work on other games, which I think that's actually what I'm going to go to next, is maybe a little bit more of a modern game that I'm more familiar with. Like, no, not for this thing. Unfortunately. Now, what? Oh man, what are my super inputs? Oh, fuck. Any intrepid chatters can lend a hand on a move list for them? Armagon is so cool. Like, legitimately, some of these characters are really dope. What is happening here?
Round one. Fight.
No April in this. Oh, fucking throws. Like, you better hit someone out of the air, man. Or block. Because you are, like, instantly active when you land.
Round two. Fight.
Oh. Yeah, 4-6 moves with either punch, so... Oh, that's what I want. Oh, okay, it's the heavies together. See, nowhere near as good as Wingnut, in my opinion. Weak punch and kick together do something? In air, 4-6. Weak punch and kick. Hybrid notations, right? Yeah. Dude, the struggle with reading some old FAQs, it is real.
Round one. Fight.
Oh, really? Crouch heavy punch is gonna whiff like that? Oh, that was for Wingnut. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah. I'm just switching around characters. It's all good. But like the super inputs are just like, is it just double quarter circles and stuff like that? Both heavies simultaneously. Okay. It has been so freaking long. And I'm like, TMNT Justice League works like that, so... Damn, punished. So many charge attacks. Oh no. I like how you can link, yeah, you can like meaty, like this rolling attack. If I don't get absolutely destroyed. Right, with a normal, really link based. It's fun, like the TMNT Cross Justice League game does such a good job of, like refining the finer points of this game. It's so fascinating to be like, what if they had a little bit more modern design thought in their in their DNA. Alrighty. Let's play some Kazuna encounter, hopefully not upside down. Okay. There we go. Let's go, Rosa. Encounter Kazuna, yes. There you go. Let's get a little bit more sound in here. All right. All right. Yo, the cross under. The walk, don't walk sign in the background. Yeah, I know, right? Oh no, I meant to switch. Let's go! Yeah, I know. Just chill them while they wait for the tag. They're like, I got you, man. Just, yo, hit me up whenever you need it. Honestly, this feels really good, man. Like this, the Capcom Power Stick Fighter, like it has a nice button layout. It's the buttons, like, okay, the buttons aren't fantastic, but they do have, like, they are, like, they're responsive. They're just a little stiff. They don't have much throw. They don't have much click. But the lever is actually particularly nice. What is that? That's probably what I should be going for. All right. Yo. Yeah, this is quite nice. Okay, and you know what's really confusing? There's actually a switch here that says mode 4 or 8, and I assume that's 4-way or 8-way inputs, but the 8-way inputs are not getting recognized. So I'm gonna have to look into that to see if I can find a manual to see what actually this functionality is supposed to be for, this little switch here. But like, this is like, it's a surprisingly good quality, like low to mid range. Go, nice 25% combo. Man, the juggles are so fun in this game, too. We got air blocks. Oh, wait. I needed to go quarter circle back, like. Oh, too far? There we go. Yeah, dude, I would love to be able to find the wireless IR adapter for this at like a reasonable price as well to see what it's like. But yeah, like it has this like slightly arched, right? Other than the very, very weird button layout, which I have seen that someone has done a mod for this that actually rearranges the buttons to more closely match most Super Nintendo layouts. But like, if you're using something like this for primarily like through emulators anyways, it's not an issue. Whoops. Oh, I got so lucky that she just like fell through me. Oh, we got grab. All right, yo, thanks for joining, Punk. Take it easy. I'm just gonna be playing a couple games with this arcade stick before calling it a night or an afternoon. Hope you have a lovely day. Yes, glad you managed to get through Freddy as well, dude. So happy about that. There you go. Just gonna keep him out of his tag zone. Okay, let me start with the king. Okay, that's punishable. Okay, that keeps me safe, though. That's nice. And gets me a knockdown. Ah, shit. Let him get the tag. Oh, God. Right. Can't go into your command normals once you go into heavy. Forward medium, forward light, or like reverse beat any of them. Dude, the combo system in Kazuna Encounter is so freaking cool, and it's just like, yo, everything pretty much goes into everything else. Find your like preferred route. Oh, no. Yeah, I can do that too, dude. Oh, no. More like King Chump. Oh, good old SNK. I like how they force you to put your initials in and get your high score before you continue. They're like, no, you're out. You get the high score, here you go. Now continue and select. All right, folks. You know what? We've had a pretty good day. We've had a nice long chat. I think though I'm gonna call it and go hang out with Miss MKL for a little bit. But yo, I appreciate y'all coming through and doing the FGC analysis and checking out some hardware stuff. I'm probably gonna do a little bit more show and tell with some of the interesting bits of like retro hardware that I have laying around. So yeah, if you're into that, let me know. We can do some more of it. Appreciate, Super HC, always appreciate you coming through. Thanks for the tips, thanks for the info in all the games that I play and such. I appreciate it. All the secret codes and the move lists and like the random bits of history that we get through you. Much love, man. Everyone, like I said, thank you as always for joining me here in the Digital Basement. We got the places you can find me at, including Patreon, including Twitter, including YouTube and all that good stuff. But most of all here, Twitch. Drop me the follow, drop me the sub, whatever you got. And, come by on every Niche Fighter Monday, because we always do something cool and interesting. So, thank you everyone. I'm going to call it today. Be nice to yourselves out there. Be nice to everyone else as well. Y'all deserve a little bit of a break. I know I do. So take care of each other and take care of yourself. And I will see you next week in the Digital Basement. Peace out.